Street signs are something that you should just be able to look at a glance and know exactly what it means. So in the EU, across the board, most of the signs are generally the same, but in the US, we have some different signs. So a lot of Americans don't know the meaning of some of these European signs based on cultural differences, unclear meaning based on what Americans are used to, or they may just be signs that are completely different than we have in the US. So that's what we're going to talk about today in our video, 7 unique street signs that we had never seen before moving to Germany.
Hey guys, and welcome back to our channel. I am Donnie and that was my wife Aubrey, and we are 2 Americans currently living in Germany, and we are sharing all of our experiences living here along with all of our travels here on this channel. And we're going to kick this episode off with one of Germany's most famous street signs, and then we're going to move into some of the more obscure ones as we get to the end. So let's go. So here we are on the world famous German Autobahn. Now when Americans think of the Autobahn, they have 2 common misconceptions about it. One, they think that the German Autobahn is one single road that is just world famous in Germany. And 2, they also think that it is just a road with absolutely no speed limits and you can just drive however fast you want to on it. The 2 things wrong with that is, 1, the Autobahn is just the translation for what we would call in the US highways or interstates, and the Autobahn is a huge network of roads throughout Germany. 2, in recent years there have been more and more speed limits put on the Autobahn in different sections, but that is only until you see one of those signs. So in the US, our speed limit signs look like this. And speed limits can vary based off different variables, or each state can set their own max speed limit, generally around 70 to 75 miles per hour. And what we don't have in the US are the 3 black lines across the sign like we have here in Germany and in Europe as a whole. And those 3 black diagonal lines on signs mean the end to a zone. That could be a speed zone, that could be a passing zone, etc. But here on the Autobahn, if you have a white circle sign with 3 black diagonals, that's the end to all zones, and you can just take off and go at whatever speed you want.
Now we are going to slow it way down and talk about a sign that is confusing because of the translation of a particular word on it. We've talked about the different usage of the word frei in another episode and how it pertains to a parking garage and it meaning spaces are available in Germany, and meaning parking doesn't cost anything in the US. But there is also this sign. This sign is confusing to Americans, at least to us and a few others that we know, because here this word frei means that bikes are permitted in this area, almost like they are free and have the right to roam this area. However, whenever we read this word free, we don't think no charge this time, but instead keep this area free of bikes, and therefore our mind thinks you aren't permitted to have bikes here. Every time I see one of these signs, I step off, I get off my bike, I get back on, then I get off and I get back on, because I'm trying to remember which line of thinking is correct in this situation.
So these next signs are some that were actually a little bit alarming when we very first saw them, because there are tanks on them. And we thought we were seeing these in our area because we have a lot of military bases around us. But turns out we've actually found these in other cities as well, and these are NATO load capacity signs. So these signs are in a lot of NATO countries in which they need to have roadways and bridges marked so that military vehicles can know what they can handle. So they will have either a tracked or a non-tracked sign that will have a class number on it, and then from those they can tell if they will be able to pass on the road or bridge that they are approaching. A lot of people get it confused with speed limits or actually weight limits, but turns out there's neither of those, but they are class numbers. So a vehicle will receive a class number either based off of weight, axle numbers, width of the vehicles, etc. And then off of those numbers, they can give it a class number and they can know if they actually can pass on those roadways or not.
When driving down a main road, we've seen many signs along the road with a yellow triangle. This sign indicates that you're on a priority road, meaning that other cars have to yield to you. In the US, most of the times, you know that you're on the main priority road because there aren't yield signs, stop signs, etc. telling you to avoid the other traffic. So by there not being a sign, you know that you don't have to yield to other traffic. In Germany, they do have these other signs as well, but this was the first time we saw a sign with the sole purpose of indicating who has the priority at some sort of an intersection.
One of our absolute favorite things about living here in Germany has been hearing the church bells ringing every single day from the churches in the town, city, or village centers. And also, as we've been driving around, especially in our area in Germany, we have seen, as we've been entering into different villages or towns, signs that show when the church services are for the churches in the middle of that town. This is something we definitely do not have in the US because we have a very strong separation of church and state. So you're not going to find some kind of government paid sign that shows when the church services are. Whenever we have seen these signs here in Germany, we will often find two different signs that will show the Catholic services and also the Protestant services for those two different churches if they are two different ones. The specific part of the US that we come from is known as the Bible Belt. And in Oklahoma alone, we have over 4,400 churches. So also you have a ton of churches, a ton of different service times, and so they all will have their own sign that shows their service times. In Germany, you have the same thing. So if you come into a village and you see those service times, these are talking about like the main church in the middle of the town or village. But there still are other churches in the area. They're just going to have their own service times posted on their own signs that you can also go to if you want to.
Whenever we bought our car, we had to go get our license plates as well as a little sticker indicating the emission levels from our car. One of the reasons for this, we found out, is because of a little thing called an Umvelt zone. In many cities, they will have a sign on the road leading in, and at a certain point, these signs will show you what vehicles are allowed to drive in the cities based on the emissions of the vehicle. They will show the color of the sticker that is allowed into, with many cities only allowing lower emission vehicles with a green sticker in them. There are also a lot of cities that now don't allow diesel vehicles to drive through the city anymore. Umwelt is the German word for environment, and we have had some people explain these zones are for the health of the people living in these more downtown areas or large cities. Some say it's for environmental purposes, or maybe it's for all of the above. Nonetheless, we've never seen a sign in the US that restricts what types of vehicles are allowed to be driven inside of parts of the country or cities.
This next sign was one of the most obscure ones whenever we first moved here, and it wasn't until last night when I finally legit looked up what it was that I finally figured out exactly what the sign was telling us, and that's this one. I really don't like the design of this sign because you kind of have this kid floating here playing, you have a car barreling towards this family, you have this house just hanging out on the side, and then you have like this snake shape off on the side as well. So this sign itself, to me, doesn't really depict what the message is trying to get across is completely. Whenever we first saw it, we kind of got the idea that this is telling us this is like a neighborhood. You're supposed to drive carefully and slowly whenever you're driving down here because there may be kids or families at play. And that is exactly what the sign is telling us. Basically what it's saying is if you're driving through this area, you have to drive at walking pace because children are allowed to play freely in the streets here as well, and parking is also limited to very specific spots here if parking is allowed at all because it's supposed to be free for play. We have signs like this kind of in the US that a lot of times get made fun of because they look like this and they basically say slow children at play. And whenever you look at those signs, they get a lot of jokes made about them, obviously because of the grammar with those signs and how they say slow children at play. But it's getting the same message across as these. I just don't think either signs really do a great job at saying what they are trying to actually say.
And like we said, we know that some of these signs are not just unique to Germany, but can be found in other countries as well. But these are the ones that really stuck out to us as we moved here from the US. And we know there are other signs that also can be confusing whenever you first move here, but we will get to those later.
So thanks much for watching this video, guys. If you enjoyed it, please hit that like button and also subscribe. And definitely hit that bell icon because you can be notified every single time we upload a new video. We don't want you to miss any of our experiences living here in Germany and all of our travels. We will see you in our next video.
Tschüss.
NATO load capacity signs. Vary based off of different, what's the word?
Okay.
Take 4, maybe 5. Action. Or government sign that show when there are church services in their cities very often. Ever. We have heard a lot. No, we haven't heard. We haven't heard the signs. We've seen the signs. Action.
But these were the ones that really stuck to us.
They stuck to us.
They stuck to us.
Okay, let's go. I'm not gonna have it going that long. Yeah.